Why representations and disclosures matter more in commercial deals. As we complete Chapter 2, we arrive at one of the most legally significant parts of the commercial contract: representations, warranties, and disclosures. This is where the transaction shifts from investigation, due diligence, to accountability. What is being said about the property? What is being promised? And most importantly, what must be disclosed? This section ties directly to everything we have discussed so far. The buyer has conducted due diligence, but the seller still has legal obligations to disclose known material facts. The contract becomes the written record of truth, and any misrepresentation can lead to serious legal consequences. This is reinforced under AAC R4281101, which requires licensees to deal fairly and disclose material information, and ARS paragraph 32.153, which outlines grounds for discipline, including misrepresentation and fraud. Understanding representations versus warranties. Representations are statements of fact made by one party to another, typically regarding the condition of the property or the status of the transaction. Warranties go one step further. They are promises that certain facts are true and will remain true for a specified period. In commercial contracts, sellers often limit warranties to reduce risk, while buyers seek stronger language to ensure protection. For example, a seller may represent that there are no known environmental issues on the property. A warranty might state that no hazardous materials have been used or stored on the property during the seller's ownership. The distinction matters because warranties can survive closing, meaning the buyer may still have legal recourse after the transaction is complete. Disclosure obligations: what must be shared. Disclosure is one of the most litigated areas in real estate. Even in commercial transactions, where buyers are expected to conduct extensive due diligence, sellers cannot hide known material defects. The landmark case Hill v. Jones established that sellers must disclose known, material, and non-obvious defects. While this case involved residential property, its principles apply broadly and influence commercial practice. In Arizona, ARS paragraph 32.156 clarifies that certain stigmatizing facts, such as deaths or crimes on the property, are not required disclosures. However, this does not protect a seller from failing to disclose physical or financial conditions that materially impact the property's value. For example, if a seller knows that a property has ongoing roof leaks or significant structural issues, failure to disclose this information could result in legal liability, even if the buyer had the opportunity to inspect the property. The role of the commercial SPDS and property disclosures. Unlike residential transactions, commercial disclosures are often less standardized. However, tools such as the Commercial Seller Property Disclosure Statement, SPDS, provide a structured way for sellers to disclose known conditions. The SPDS is not a warranty. It is a disclosure document. It reflects the seller's knowledge of the property at the time of completion. For example, a seller completing an SPDS for an office building in Scottsdale may disclose prior repairs, known defects, or issues with tenant leases. This information becomes a critical part of the buyer's due diligence process. Agents must ensure that these disclosures are completed accurately and delivered in a timely manner. Agent duties: avoiding misrepresentation. Agents have their own independent duty to disclose material facts, even if the seller does not. This duty is reinforced by AAC R4281101I, requiring agents to communicate known material information to all parties. The case Lombardo vs. Albu further emphasizes that financial and performance-related information may need to be disclosed even when confidentiality concerns exist. For example, if a listing agent is aware that a major tenant plans to vacate shortly after closing, failing to disclose this information could be considered a material misrepresentation. This highlights a key principle: agents are not just messengers. They are responsible for ensuring that material facts are properly communicated. As is does not mean no disclosure. One of the most misunderstood concepts in commercial real estate is the as-is clause. Many believe that selling a property as is eliminates the seller's obligation to disclose defects. This is incorrect. An as-is clause simply means that the seller is not obligated to make repairs. It does not protect against fraud or failure to disclose known material defects. For example, a seller cannot hide a known environmental contamination issue simply because the property is being sold as is. This concept is critical for both buyers and agents to understand, as it directly impacts liability. Real-world scenario: when disclosure becomes litigation. Consider a buyer purchasing a mixed-use property in downtown Phoenix. After closing, the buyer discovers that several tenants were months behind on rent and that the seller had been covering shortfalls to make the property appear more profitable. If the seller failed to disclose this information, the buyer may have grounds for legal action based on misrepresentation. This scenario ties together representations, warranties, and disclosure obligations, showing how failure in any one area can lead to significant consequences. How this section completes the contract framework. This final section of Chapter 2 brings everything together. We started with identifying the parties and property, moved into financial commitment through earnest money, explored buyer protection through due diligence, and now end with truth and accountability through representations and disclosures. Together, these elements form the foundation of every commercial real estate contract. As we move into Chapter 3, we will begin focusing on contract performance, timelines, and enforcement, where all of these concepts are put into action in real-world transactions. Online discussion. Why is disclosure still required even in commercial transactions where buyers conduct due diligence? Answer: because sellers and agents have a legal obligation to disclose known material facts. Due diligence does not eliminate the duty to disclose, especially for defects that are not easily discoverable. What is the difference between a representation and a warranty? Answer: a representation is a statement of fact, while a warranty is a promise that a fact is true and may continue to be true after closing, often providing additional legal protection to the buyer. Does an as-is clause protect a seller from failing to disclose defects? Answer: no. An as-is clause does not eliminate the duty to disclose known material defects and does not protect against fraud or misrepresentation.